Welcome to the Best Wedding App podcast.
Swipe to the left, swipe to the right. The best wedding app brings your dreams to life.
The Best Wedding App.
On today's show, we have Queensland-based Annie from Celebrant Lady Love. Now, Annie wears many, many hats. She is a business owner, a musician, a celebrant, and quite frankly, she is a force to be reckoned with. Join us as we uncover the secrets behind Celebrant Lady Love's success as a business owner, her unique approach to creating unforgettable ceremonies, and how she masterfully blends her musical talents and clever business skills into every celebration her business is a part of. Get ready to be inspired and entertained as we explore her journey, the lessons she's learned, and the advice she has for aspiring entrepreneurs, musicians, and celebrants. Welcome, Annie.
Hello, and thank you. That was quite a wonderful introduction. I'm very humbled by all of that.
Oh, my pleasure. Look, I think sometimes in life you need to sit back and realize, holy heck, look at what I have accomplished.
Yeah, I have a bit of a problem with that. I seem to always be going, what can I do next? Instead of looking at, look where I am now.
Yeah, well, look, you have such an amazing business. Obviously, I think you've probably been in celebrancy for a similar amount of time, actually. And I've watched your business evolve over the years, and your business hat come on in many, many different facets, which is just, it's inspiring and it's incredible. So let's go back to the beginning and talk us through sort of what inspired you to become a celebrant.
Oh, look, I think that there were a few things at play when I eventually made the decision to undertake the certificate 4 in celebrancy, which is what it was back then. It's changed a bit now. It's a weird thing because celebrancy has always been something that I've had in the back of my mind as a little idea bubbling away. I did a lot of I was a bit of a thespian growing up, I was involved in a lot of theatre and performing arts and, dance, drama, music, all of that. So performance had always been a big part of my life. But as I merged into adulthood and became a parent and, started a career, a lot of the things that you are passionate about when you're younger tend to fade away a little bit, and life becomes a bit more serious.
Totally.
I remember going to a friend's wedding and arriving to discover, to my surprise, that there was a celebrant there unlike any other celebrant I'd seen before. It wasn't just that she was younger. I hadn't seen a younger celebrant before. I had sort of pigeonholed celebrants as being, the stereotypical role that you take on as a community service when you go into retirement, similar to a JP or something like that. And to my mind, ceremonies had a fairly similar structure, and there wasn't necessarily anything about them that was inspiring. But when I arrived at this ceremony and I saw this celebrant, and she was very well dressed and looked very cool, I suddenly became a little bit curious and excited about the ceremony, thinking, might see something that I haven't seen here before.
Awesome.
And I guess that was just like a little bit of a spark or an idea about, hang on, this is different. This is exciting. Unfortunately, the ceremony was a little underwhelming. She did look the part. She was a good speaker, but the two friends who she was marrying are particularly colourful people and have a very colourful backstory.
Okay.
And I was excited at the prospect of her perhaps delving into that.
Sure.
And touching on some of their memories together and some of the things that they'd done together. And I thought it could have it had the potential to be a really, really good ceremony, but what she delivered was quite generic and
Okay.
Missed the mark. And there was just one point where I thought to myself, I just want to go and take the microphone off her and start telling
the story.
And I I actually had my youngest child, who was a newborn, in my arms at that point in time. And I grabbed my then husband's sleeve and I pulled on it, and he's like, "What?" And I said, I'm going to become a celebrant. And he goes, "What?" "Yeah, I'm going to become a celebrant." He goes, "Okay, cool." Like,
Right.
"I'm just letting you know." He's like, "Okay, cool." Anyway, the next day I went and enrolled and did my Cert 4 and in celebrancy, and within 6 months I was appointed, and yeah, sort of burst onto the scene at a time when that whole storytelling element that is now so sought after and recognized as a necessary aspect to ceremony, that was not something that was regular thing, and it was new and it was fresh, and I knew that was the edge that I had. And
So exciting.
yeah, outside of being, breaking the mold of what a celebrant might look like, I think I broke the mold in terms of how ceremony is viewed and what ceremony can be. And to that end, I found booking couples, once I'd done a couple of ceremonies, word of mouth traveled quite quickly, and I found booking weddings to be a breeze. There was no competition at that point, few and far between. There were, and I really latched on to the people who I found to be like me and like-minded, and taking a similar approach and trying to break through the walls of archaic traditions and kowtowing to unnecessary rituals. And
Yes. Don't we love a good ritual?
yeah, like, I think because there were so few of us back then doing that and trying to break new ground, we really clung to each other, and we formed a bit of a community. And you were part of that community.
Oh my God, this is such a great story. So at the time, you're a mum of Holly.
2 children. So I had a newborn, Holly and Finn. And
So was Holly the newborn you were talking about? Because I've been a celebrant for 14 years, and you've probably been about that time too.
No, so Finn was newborn. So I've been doing this for 10 years. So
10 years.
you're my senior.
Oh, I am. What were you doing before for work?
I was a school teacher. I'd done a double degree in teaching and social work.
Wow.
I was very much not enjoying teaching, and I was on maternity leave. And so I guess that all, when I say that there wasn't just any one thing that started me off on this journey, I guess that was another thing. I wasn't happy with where I was at and what I was doing. I was looking for something else. The idea of celebrancy was there in the background. It had that performance element and that writing storytelling element that I knew I could include. And then, of course, yeah, it was, I guess, what brought it all together was attending that wedding and seeing that youngest.
I see the social work side of you, because you are such a beautifully empathetic person, and that does transcend through in your clients, right? Like sometimes, and I think there is an element in this industry of needing that empathetic nature, because people don't know what they're going to encounter on their wedding day, or what their emotions are going to flow through and how they're going to react. And I think for other celebrants who are maybe thinking about becoming, people be thinking about becoming, being a celebrant, or new celebrants, it's so important to know that that beautiful empathetic nature that you have is really an important quality to carry through.
And I think having empathy is an absolutely necessary trait in this role, because when couples come to us and they share their story with us, they do so with a level of trust and vulnerability that requires an empathic ear,
Totally.
So not just a person who can sit there and hear and respond to and learn their story and be able to write it and deliver it with charisma, but a person who really respects it, and a person who accepts who they are, where they've come from, everybody's got a different story to tell. And not all stories are, you know, oh, we met in high school, we're high school sweethearts. You know, some have come through the trenches in order to find each other. Some are on their second or third marriage. Some of them have, you know, arrived by boat as refugees and found each other in detention centers. Some are, you know, I've married couples who are at death's door, literally bedside.
Saw that last week. I was going to touch on that because that is the sadder side of our job that some people don't realize. And you know, I read or listened to your story about how you were waiting for that call and you knew that that was coming, and that's such an important role to play for them, Annie, on you know, death's door. Like, I mean, it's remarkable that you were able to be there for them in such a nature and get their marriage across the line at a time when it was so important for them.
Yeah, you know, that couple had been together for 20 years. They had a child together, and they had said to me, you know, marriage was always on the horizon, but something we just never got around to. We'd already built our life together. We had our child, and it wasn't until he became unwell that they realized how important marriage was to them. And so when they made the decision to marry, they didn't even care about where or how it happened, only that it happened. So all of those ideas that people sort of enter, there's ideas and thought patterns that we fall into about what a wedding should look like. When you take away all of the fanfare and the lipstick and the rouge, you know, I think what we're left with is what's most important, and that is the marriage, not the wedding. And that's the relationship between the two people, and having the opportunity to celebrate your love in whatever form that takes. So yeah, and that particular ceremony, delivering that ceremony bedside in ICU, where the groom really couldn't say much more than his legal vows and was on oxygen a lot of the time. And I think I said it in my post, they sobbed through their legal vows, you know, and I choked on the monitor. And I get emotional talking about it now, because historically speaking, the legal aspect of the ceremony for me has always been the least emotional, and probably the part that I tend to invest the least amount of energy into. It's a requirement of the ceremony in order for their marriage to be legally valid. But when we strip the ceremony back to only its legal components and it was delivered in that way, suddenly those words took on a whole new meaning.
So much merit.
Became so sentimental. Yeah.
Annie, you craft your ceremonies with such beautiful words. Where does that come from? Obviously, you said the thespian aspect, etc., but did you love creative writing?
Yeah, always loved reading, always loved writing, and fictional writing in particular. And I think for me, one of the most enjoyable parts of the job is taking someone's story, listening, because I, like most celebrants, I'll interview both of my clients, whether it be through a questionnaire format or in person, sometimes a combination of both. And I listen to their own versions of events and moments and milestones that they've encountered. And I talk to them about their thoughts and feelings surrounding those moments and milestones. And I do so in a way that I guess I always insist upon it being an individual thing, an individual task, so that they're not telling each other what they're writing or what they're saying. And then I think that when it comes time for me to share their story, because essentially what I'm doing is I'm just cherry picking the best parts of what they've both told me, the most emotive and the most meaningful and the funniest and, you know, the most warm and memorable parts of their stories, and stitching it together in a way, obviously, that's cleverly worded. And I think the best part is watching their reactions to hearing what the other person has said, because, you know, when you've been together for a considerable period of time, which most of my couples have at least been together for a couple of years, I think that you have a tendency to become a bit complacent with your thoughts and feelings and the things that you do for each other on a day-to-day basis that make your life easier, better, and more fun.
Mm.
And when we bring those things to the forefront of our mind and we express them and we talk about them and we revisit them, it reinvigorates the relationship. You know, it isn't just heartwarming for everybody there to hear. And sometimes, obviously, it's funny because I think that people, I guess, on particularly on days like weddings, we talk about people in a different way, and we share more publicly our thoughts and feelings that you probably would normally keep to yourself. And sometimes it's heartwarming and sometimes it's really funny as well. But I think that what it does for the couple is, you know, in the most surprising and wonderful way, they get to rediscover all of the reasons why they fell in love and how they came to be at this point in their lives, where they are ultimately ready to just take this pledge and say, I want to keep doing this forever. And there's something, you know, you can't recreate that kind of magic. That's why everyone loves weddings. And I think that's what I love about the storytelling aspect of delivering ceremony. You know, it's one thing to write it, and it's another thing altogether to know it, to knowing your couple well enough to know their story and not just write and read a script. And then engaging people enough to follow along and seeing the emotion that rolls on from delivering that story well. Yeah, that's the best part of the job, right? That's what we live for.
But what happens to you, and I'm sure this has happened, when you get crickets in the questionnaire? You get it back and like one person has just given you gold and the other has given you, she's got a nice ass, or what do you do? Do you go back to them and say, whoa, I really want to do a great job here, but I can't? What's your process there?
There are two things that happen. If it's really a barren kind of a questionnaire and I'm getting next to nothing from them, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call them and I'll say, hey, just level with me a little bit here. I'll do the writing. I'll do the heavy lifting. You don't have to package anything into pretty sentences. I'll do all of that for me. But just tell me a few things. Just tell me, you know, what does she do for you each day? Like when you wake up, you know, on the day, I said she automatically because it's normally the guy that gives me the least, but it's not always true. That's certainly not always true. And I've had the opposite happen. But yeah, whoever it is that I'm talking to, I'll try and squeeze a bit of juice out of them via a phone call. And, you know, failing that, I think that there's what happens is when you get very little from the couple, it leaves so much room for creativity and to really, I take creative license on a lot of stories and I'll turn them on their heads. And I might even say the opposite of what is true for comedic value, you know, and so I think that that's when you have to become a bit more clever in your story writing and in delivery and probably take a few more risks. But I feel that I'm at a point in my career now where my risks are calculated and I know my couples well enough to understand where the boundaries are and how far I can take things as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. Maybe there's going to be a Celebrant Lady Love fictional novel in the works, just to add another hat to your already amazing business life. But you do have such a way with words. Now, obviously, you've got so many different parts to your business, and our listeners will not know all of that. So I want to touch on how amazing your style is, because you actually have created this beautiful Facebook group called Celebrants on Tour, I think it is. Was that what it's called? Yeah.
It's actually Buy, Swap, and
Celebrants. That's right. Okay. And so what it is, it's where celebrants across Australia will list their dresses and people can buy them back. Now, how ingenious are you? Because we don't want to wear the same thing all the time. And you've such a great fashion sense. Tell me why that's so important to you. I know obviously you said that this celebrant that you saw, she had a really great style, and it is important, right? Because you're standing up there, you need to look your best. But you have a really unique, cool style about you.
Thank you so much. I guess I've always loved fashion, but I guess with weddings in particular, people are spending so much money on trying to achieve a particular type of aesthetic. And some of those aesthetics are extremely specific. A wedding I did last week was on a rooftop, and the requirement was for all 180 guests to wear white. And so, everything that they'd done in their thinking and their planning involved, it was down to the letter. So, it would be absolutely unprofessional of me then to not adhere to the expectations and the standards set by my couples. And I think that when you are hiring a celebrant, if aesthetics are really important to you, that would be one of the first things that would strike you if you were to peruse their social media or their website. And you're spending $6,000-7,000 on a photographer. You're not going to then book someone who's going to disrupt the flow or the aesthetic that you're going for. So, and I know it works in so many ways. And I know it sounds superficial to even say that couples are hunting, searching for celebrants
Right.
based on the way that they look. But it's maybe it's like a hurtful truth. And I think that it would be silly to be offended by that too, because I've seen couples who are specifically looking for a man. They only want a male celebrant for whatever reason. It's not my business or my place to judge or make comment. That's what they want. That's what they're looking for. It's their wedding day, and that's their prerogative. Same goes with their aesthetic. They've decided that this is what they're wanting to achieve. They've chosen this color palette. They've chosen this decor, and they want a person who's going to be standing up there with them during the ceremony to tie in with all of that.
Let's go back to the white outfit, because as a celebrant, we don't have white outfits, so we shouldn't. So what did you have to go buy this white outfit just for this occasion?
Well, I just ended up wearing white pants and a white top and a white hat, all items that I've never worn together before. So normally I'd wear the white pants with a blue top, or the white top with black pants or a skirt or something like that. But yeah, the white hat, the white top, the white pants and gold shoes, and
gorgeous. So Annie, tell me all about your new venue called Love Buzz. It sounds amazing. Give us the spiel. What's it about?
So Love Buzz was born out of the pandemic. So I think we all felt the absolute devastation reaped by the pandemic, especially those of us who have businesses in the wedding and events industry. And like everybody else, my business went from thriving to barely surviving overnight. And what I saw, and because I'm in Queensland, I know that your experience in Melbourne was much more severe, and I know that I know that you probably, you definitely had a much more prolonged sentence than what we did. But when we started to reemerge from the pandemic, what we saw was that there were still weddings could take place, but there were so many restrictions that really it sort of dictated the difference between having a full-scale wedding and what we would probably define as a micro wedding. And more couples were finding that there were only venues that catered to large-scale weddings. And there was one point where you couldn't have more than 20 people. And so people were having to book these large venues and then only have 20 people, and then reduce the amount of time that they were there. And there weren't any packages or anything like that really catered specifically to this idea of a micro wedding. And then I guess as we traveled further along, and the wedding market really opened back up again, and people were able to have these bigger weddings once more, what I discovered was that many of them weren't in a financial position to be able to do so. So the idea behind Love Buzz is that you can have and experience the large scale wedding, the big wedding feels, but on a smaller scale. So we run, instead of it running for 6 to 8 hours, we run it for 2 to 3 hours. Instead of having 80 to 100 guests, you'll have 20 to 30. And so the venue, it's an all-inclusive package. And instead of spending a 50 or 60 grand, you spend 4 or 5 grand.
So by all-inclusive package, tell me what's included. The venue, obviously, the celebrants.
The venue, the celebrant. There are different tiers available, but you can have it as small as a registry wedding. So the other thing is that on the Gold Coast, there's no registry office. You have to travel all the way to Brisbane, which is over an hour from where I live, to be able to attend the registry. And same as you travel further north into just over the border into New South Wales, all of the people from Byron south were coming to Brisbane to do registry weddings.
Oh, that's crazy.
So I was hoping Love Buzz would do two things. It would service the couples who want a registry wedding and no fuss in and out, sort of a legal ceremony without the fanfare and just 2 witnesses and get themselves married, which it really suits couples, especially if they're having their wedding overseas and they need to do the legals here and all of that. So there's that option. And then there's the next step up if you just want to have a very small scale affair but still make it feel a bit special. And you can have the venue for an hour. And that includes obviously me or one of the other Lady Loves as your celebrant. And it includes a photographer as well. So you have your ceremony, and then you have a bottle of champagne, and then you have photos in and around the ceremony, in and around the venue. And the venue's been specifically designed so that there are loads of locations to be able to take. We've had muralists come in and paint walls, and there's a cool bar there, and then there's the ceremony space, and then there are some lounges up the top, and then there's a big white space which is a studio as well, so they can get portraits and things like that done as well. So the space has been purposely designed to lend itself well to I guess having lots of diverse areas for photos to take place, which is particularly good if there's terrible weather outside and you're restricted to shooting inside only. And then of course the next step up is you have the venue for 3 hours, and you've got a photographer, a videographer, me as your celebrant, a grazing board for up to 30 guests, and a cake, and that's 5 grand.
Gee, that's
it's
amazing.
Actually, like, I think based on all of the research that I've done and looking at all of the couples who would likely be interested in booking a wedding like that, you just can't, I think in terms of it being so fuss-free, in that you don't have to do any research on vendors, because we use the same photographers and videographers. So it's the same level of quality every time. You've got a Lady Love celebrant delivering your ceremony. The venue speaks for itself, and it's just so easy. So
what a great idea, Annie.
In and out, and no fuss. And then you're married, you get all of the trimmings and trappings of a large scale wedding for a fraction of the price. And also, I think that you can't put a price on just having that kind of a stress-free experience where you don't have to invest so much time and energy into making decisions on the smaller details and choosing vendors and allocating budgets and doing it's just simple.
Just rock up and have a good time.
That's it.
Awesome. What a great idea. So every couple who's listening to this, if you're stifled by interest rates and you don't want to go to the hassle of having a huge wedding, check it out, because that sounds absolutely incredible. Now, you're a singer. Didn't know this about you. Well, I did, but I didn't. Let's touch on that. How exciting.
Yeah, well, look, the singing side of things is on ice for now because my music partner is on hiatus, but Look, for a while, when wedding season, was really pumping and I was delivering 4 different roles, like celebrant, MC, singer, and then DJ. On occasion, I would rock up to a wedding and deliver all 4 roles in one day. And that was
That's insane.
kind of crazy. Yeah, like I'd do the ceremony and then directly following the ceremony, I'd sing for 2 hours and then wind up my little singing session by rounding everybody up and getting them into the reception space. And then I would jump behind the DJ booth and reintroduce the couple as they re-entered the reception. And then, it was crazy. It was, yeah. And probably my preference these days is not to take on all 4 roles, but I do enjoy taking on the celebrant MC DJ role. I think that having the singing going on in between
you are
probably a little bit over ambitious, but
people don't sometimes I know people underestimate the role of a celebrant, full stop. But to do all of those other jobs and to plan for that, you don't just rock up and DJ, you don't just rock up and MC, you have to fastidiously plan what you're going to say, how you're going to introduce people, etc. That is a huge undertaking. And kudos to you, because honestly, you've got 2 kids too, and a partner, and I think you've got animals and
no partner.
You're keeping a lot of things going. It's pretty incredible. Now, Lady Love has expanded, and actually expanded is probably not the right word. It has taken off with amazing gusto. So you have this mentoring behind you and all of these lovely Lady Loves who are part of your business. Now I know a considerable amount of time and effort goes into all of those Lady Loves so that they are of the same caliber as you are. Tell me how many there are now.
Currently, officially, on the books, there are 14. And we've got a couple who are in waiting. They're just sort of undergoing mentoring and training, because obviously I want to make sure that anytime I bring a new celebrant on board, well before I'm ready to send them out delivering weddings, I need to make sure that they are at a level that I'm not just I'm happy with, but that everyone will be happy with. Anyone who books them will be satisfied that they're getting the same level of service from any one of my Lady Loves. And so there's a lot of time invested into mentoring and training them, getting them up to scratch. But like you said before, I think that the role of the celebrant is very underestimated. And I think that there's a misconception that what we see the role of the celebrant being is the performance on the day of the wedding. But so much goes on before that celebrant is ready to rock up on the day and deliver that ceremony. Like we touched on earlier, there's the storytelling aspect and being able to get to know, build a rapport with your couples, get to know them, investigate their story and everything about them in order to be able to write a ceremony that is genuine and meaningful and articulate and warm and funny and all of the things that it needs to be, so that, you're engaging their guests in all of the best ways. And then outside of that, our role has such a heavy administration load. And that is what's probably most underestimated.
Yeah,
so
totally agree.
Every time a client comes on board, we are immediately sending, obviously there's a lot of email correspondence that goes on, but we're also arranging times to meet with them, have at length discussions and meetings with them that sometimes go for a couple of hours. And then building the resources required to be able to even participate in those meetings, and then send those couples away with the required resources so that they can participate in co-constructing their ceremony. And that is like the questionnaires that they need to complete. And, there are service agreements that need to be in place so that both parties are protected, you know, so that we're protected and so that the couple is protected, so
And
that they
all of
know.
that comes at a cost, Annie. All of
Oh
those
my
things have,
goodness. You know, we've got gear. We've got a lot of really expensive equipment that we take from wedding to wedding. We have insurances that need to be in place. So there are so many things that go on in the background prior to actually rocking up and delivering the wedding on the day. And every celebrant will tell you the best part of the job is the wedding day. But the journey to getting there, you know,
It's huge.
it's huge, and it's not unenjoyable, but it is, I would say, it takes a long time to be able to do all of the things necessary in order to deliver a fantastic ceremony. It takes a long time to learn those processes and refine those business systems and have all of the resources that you need and that your couples need in order to support them on their wedding day and make their wedding feel easy. And that's the difference, right? Because when you arrive at a wedding and you've got all of the necessary tools, experience, and support behind you, we make the job look easy because we can enjoy it, and because we can lean into the things that matter most on the day, namely the couple and their needs and making them shine. So much has to happen every time I bring on a new,
Of course.
in
Yeah.
order to get them up to a standard where they're delivering ceremonies on the day and making it look fun and easy.
Yeah. And it's I really struggle with this side. I mean, this doesn't have anything to do with your Lady Loves it, but it has to do with people not valuing the time and expertise. I actually met a client last night, and they had seen one of my legals only packages. And I'd spent a couple of hours with them. And then at the end, they said, well, how much are you? We want our priest to do a portion of it. We want you to only do the legals. And I said my price, and they're like, well, that's not that price. And I said, well, that price is only available Monday to Thursday at the park across the road from my house. The other price is the weekend price. And you can't even get married at the registry office for what I'm quoting you, but you're only there for 5 minutes. I'm like, but I'm not just there for 5 minutes, because it then means that I can't do another wedding at that time.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's really hard as a small business owner when you're you have to constantly justify yourself and the services that you bring, and your expertise and your eloquence and your style, the way you look, you know, it's like, it's all of those things, but people just sometimes don't value that.
I think that the reason, a large part of the reason why celebrants are undervalued is because of what I was talking about earlier, when celebrancy used to be a public and community service role. So celebrants who were appointed, there were only a limited number of celebrants who could be appointed in each area, and they delivered their role as a community service in much the same way as a JP would. And they delivered it in the same way that you would deliver a service if you were doing it for free. They had templates set out, and, you know, the couple would choose which ceremony they wanted, and it was just sort of like pop your names into the templates and
Off you go.
read it out of a plastic folder. And it's hard to then to redefine and break down these ingrained sort of perceptions of the role, and because the role has evolved so much since then, and the necessary requirements for us to fulfill in order to maintain our registration and things like that, whereby we do ongoing professional development and adhere to all the regulations and things set out by the Governor Attorney General, and paying our registration fees and all of those things that happen in the background, that was never a thing either. So we have to work hard in order to maintain our professional skills and qualifications so that we can just turn up and marry them and fulfill the legal paperwork. So in your scenario where the person's saying, but it's only 5 minutes. No, because I spend, you know, a good portion of my life maintaining my skills, standards, certifications in order to be able to be present there for you for those 5 minutes. And I think that there was a really good analogy I heard a long time ago that often comes to mind when this discussion plays out. And it is, if you go to a graphic designer and ask them to create a logo for you, and it takes them 5 minutes to create a logo, and you love the logo and it's incredibly well crafted and it's powerful and it hits all the right notes and you know that it's exactly what you want, you don't pay the graphic designer for the 5 minutes it took them to create that logo for you. You pay them for the years and years it's taken them to build and hone their skills to get to a point where they have the ability to create that logo in 5 minutes.
Yes.
It's the same
So
for any
well said.
profession.
Definitely. So I think it's important for couples to know that obviously such a considerable amount of time has gone in to you creating this Lady Love brand and these women under your brand. And it's important for people to understand that if they've got their heart set on you, but you're not available, that anybody else is going to, they're going to deliver a meaningful, powerful ceremony just like you would. And it's so impressive, Annie, what you've been able to do and how you've been able to mentor all of those women. It's really, really exciting, and it's really powerful, and it's amazing for our industry that you have such beautiful ladies who are part of your business that people can call on and know that they're gonna, that their day is going to be well crafted, which is, kudos to you, Annie. It's really, really awesome. Now, I know you've seen billions of weddings. Well, probably not billions, but a few thousand, maybe. I don't know.
Getting up to the 1,000 mark. So, yep.
What's the standout? Do you have one that you're like, whoa, this was a banger? And it might not even be a banger because it was, beautiful flowers and a beautiful venue, but maybe just something happened that was incredible.
Well, like I sort of touched on earlier, the weddings that have stayed with me are not necessarily the ones that have been grandiose in style and budget and things like that. I think it's like that, what people say, you don't necessarily remember from a wedding what was said or how it looked, but you remember how it made you feel. And I think that over time, that's probably become much more apparent with me and the people I engage with and the weddings that I deliver. I think when I look back, the most memorable ones for me have been the connections that I've created with couples, and then possibly the things that have followed on from weddings. So I've married 2 couples, and shortly following those weddings, one party has died. So I've then gone back and delivered the funeral for, the first one was the groom died suddenly 9 months after the wedding took place, and he and I had a particularly good connection with this couple, and the wedding was actually in Victoria, and they'd flown me down to deliver it. And then I remember the father of the groom calling me 9 months later and asking me to fly back and deliver their funeral. And I mean, that's not the reason why I remember that wedding so well. I mean, for me, after I delivered that wedding, I walked away from that wedding feeling that it was one of the best weddings I'd ever participated in, because of the connectedness the couple had to their guests, because of the level of importance they placed on the ceremony, and because they were less concerned. And even though this wedding was aesthetically like incredible, everything that they did, they'd done so well, and but it was less important to the couple to have focus on how it looked, and much more important to them to ensure that they had a ceremony. Their focus was the ceremony, and that's what made all the difference. And I think it was the first time that I'd really come across a couple who were so heavily invested in creating and co-creating a ceremony with meaning. And that's why, they flew me to Portland, actually, so it was flying me to Melbourne, and then, you know, hiring a car and then driving. And then, so there was a lot of, they could have found, and they did try to find a local celebrant who they connected with and who they felt would represent them well. And it was through happenstance they came across my profile, because I certainly wasn't marketing myself in Victoria at that time. And I just so happened to be taking a trip to Melbourne just after they'd contacted me, and we went out for burgers and beers together. And directly following that meeting, I knew that we'd made a really good connection. And I suddenly realized how much having a good connection with your couples could transform the ultimate, like the outcome of the ceremony. And I think that was fairly early in my career. And I think moving forward, I decided to make some pretty clear-cut decisions about how I would market myself in an effort to attract more couples like that. I created a little bit of not a profile of my ideal couple, but I guess the values that the couple had were more important, and really attracting couples who valued ceremony, you know, who value the importance of storytelling, and who value the importance of delivering something that's genuine and meaningful on the day, over and above making sure that everything looks good. I mean, like I said earlier, I'll match the aesthetic, and I'll always bring my A game in terms of presentation and fashion forwardness. But the most important part of the day for me has always been the storytelling and connectedness with my couples. And I feel that was that little experience with that couple probably that was a defining moment for me. And then, of course, you know, like, I've done so many huge weddings since then, and so many remarkable things where, you know, like, I've married a couple on a snowy mountain peak in New Zealand. I had a couple fly me to Thailand, and we had this picturesque backdrop of cliffs and ocean and everything, and you know, people flying in from all over the world for this incredibly beautiful ceremony in Thailand. And so I've had huge, amazing, epic, wonderful opportunities to celebrate with people in all different kinds of ways. But over and above everything, and the places I've traveled and the people I've met and the weddings I've seen, yeah, the same feeling always comes back to me when I've made a good connection with a couple, and I recognize in that couple the importance of creating meaning and in their ceremony. That's what
connection is key. I always say to my clients, you know, it's key for your celebrant, it's key for your photographer, it's key for your videographer, because those people are with you for the most amount of time on your day. And if you meet a photographer and you don't jive, don't book them. You know, if you're just booking them purely on photos, but your personalities don't match, well, that's going to be a hard day. You want your day to be, you know, to flow on, and there not be any awkward moments, and connection is absolute key. You have covered off so many beautiful things about your business and all of the exciting elements attached to it. And I no doubt think that there's going to be a book one day in your future, because you have so many stories to tell. You've seen so much, and you've been to so many. We all have a crazy wedding story, Annie.
We do. And I guess I probably veered away from talking about my crazy wedding stories, because sometimes I have a fear of, well, I feel like I can't really divulge some of those stories without incriminating the couples or the guests of the couples whom they involve. So
yes, yeah, you definitely have to write a book and change some names. That's for sure.
And seeing, you know, and because I see the wedding from the beginning, where everybody arrives well dressed, sober, and, you know, on their best behavior, to the other end of the spectrum. At the end of the night, when I wrap up DJing and the ties have come off and the heels are broken, and, you know, the
yes, the not too glamorous side of the night.
Yeah, well, I think that that's probably where all of the incriminating stories come out.
Oh my God, I love it. Well, Annie and her team can be found on the Best Wedding app, obviously on Instagram. We'll put all of your links. We'll put your link to your venue as well. And it's been such a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and your knowledge.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Games.
The
Yeah.
Soccer World Cup. Are there any up in the Gold Coast?
Oh, I don't know. No idea.
No. Rowan and Lucia went and they loved it. All right, I need to run and check in on this boy and take him to tennis. Thanks so much. I could chat to you for hours. Next time you come down to Melbourne, let's go for drinks.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, thanks so much. And call me if you have any problems.
I will. Bye.
All right, cool. Thanks for your support. See you, Annie.
Bye.